Hello YouTube! This video is part of my build series for the 3D printable Star Destroyer bridge diorama. I purchased this massive set of 3D printable files from Charvy's 3D for my 3.75-inch Star Wars figures. I will include the link in the description below. In my last two videos, I showed you how to modify, resin print, and paint the awesome Imperial Scanning Crew figure from Funky Maclunkey. In this video, we will complete the figures by creating and applying our own Waterslide decals for the eyes and the shoulder patch. Both of these would be too difficult to paint by hand. Is it pronounced decals or decals? Tell us what you prefer in the comments below. I am going to use both in this video. In one of his videos, Funky Maclunkey suggested that we could use Waterslide Decals to create the eyes and emblems for our figures, rather than having to paint them freehand ourselves. That sounded like a good strategy to me. For the Star Destroyer bridge model from Charvy's 3D, Charvy provided us with a set of decals to use for the large data pit computer. So I started with that. I opened up Charvy's PDF file of decals in Adobe Photoshop, as you can see here, and then I removed the background by clicking this button so that only the decals themselves would be printed. Otherwise, it would try to print all this as white. At the bottom left corner of the screen, I could see that the image was 2550 pixels by 3300 pixels at a resolution of 325 pixels per inch, or PPI. This number, 325, would be important later. I duplicated Charvy's decals 3 times to fill up the page. I conducted an internet search for Star Wars Imperial emblem as a keywords and found the correct image I needed. Then I right-clicked it and said copy image. Back in Photoshop, I pasted the image with Control V and it made a new layer. Then I turned off this layer and I'll click remove background again. And now I need to find out what size I need to make it. I measured the emblem on one of my vintage Star Wars figures and it was about 5 millimeters. I used this website to calculate how many pixels my image needed to be in order to print it out at 5 millimeters. So I would click millimeters and click PPI, and then you can put 5 by 5 because it would be a square, and it's at 325 PPI. So it's telling me that what I need to do when I go into Photoshop is my image needs to be 64 by 64 pixels, and then it'll be the right size when I print it. And what I can do is I need to resize it. So remember we calculated 64 pixels. So what I can do is I experiment. So I'm going up here and I'm going to change it to 80 pixels because there's a bit of a border around it. And then if I hit Control plus, I'll zoom in. And then if I hit the selection, I can check and see how it's doing. So that's actually, it is 64 pixels. So that's what I needed to do. So that's the size I need. So now I'm going to hit Control 0 again to make it small. Now I need to copy it and make multiple copies so that it's worth printing. So I'm going to select it, press Control C, and then Control V. And then I'll do that again, Control V, and again. So now there's 4 of them. See, it's made these 4 layers. And then I'll hit Control plus to make it bigger so I can move it. I'm just waiting for the cursor so that I can move it. So then I'm going to organize them in a kind of a nice way. So when I print them, and then I can take these 4 layers, right click them and merge them. So now there's 4 of them on one layer. And then I'll click it again, copy, paste. So you see what I'm doing? I'm just making a bunch more. Copy and paste, copy and paste. Do one more, copy and paste. And then I can merge all these layers together, right click, merge layers. So now I've got a single layer with all these on it. So then if I show the displays and I go back to Control 0, and then I can click on layer 8, which is those guys, and just move them over. And then I can just keep copying and pasting and merging and make them down, 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 down till the whole page is done. Then you do the same thing with the eyes. You do a Google search, you find some vintage Star Wars figure eyes, and then you bring them in and you do the same procedure. So what I did was, here's my finished version. So I'll turn on the eyes, the insignia. This is what I'm going to ultimately print on my inkjet printer on some special decal paper, which I'll show you in a second. But first I would check it. So I will do an export as JPEG and print that out on a piece of regular paper because it's a lot cheaper than decal paper, and just bring it towards the figures and see if they're the right size first before I do anything else. This is the inkjet Waterslide decal paper that I purchased on Amazon. To do the print, we place the piece of paper glossy side up, right on the top of the paper tray. And there it is. I gave the ink about an hour to dry, and then I brought the decal sheet out into my garage and sprayed it with a light coat of Rust-Oleum matte clear. This is because if you use an inkjet printer, sometimes the ink will start to run when you put the decal in water. This doesn't happen when you use a laser printer. One light coat was not enough. The decals bled through when I added water to them. So I added 3 more heavy coats of the Rust-Oleum matte clear, and then everything worked out great. To apply the decals, first we cut them out, and I like to cut them into strips. You can either use scissors or an X-Acto knife. And then I very carefully cut around, leave a little bit of an edge. Then I place it on a piece of paper towel, and I just use a pipette to add water to it. And then I use micro set to start, and a Nick Pro #1 liner. And you'll put the micro set where you want the decal to go. And now this guy will be ready. You can use the paintbrush too to lift it off the paper. I tried that, I just don't have the dexterity for it. And then you place it where you want. And then you can put a little bit more micro set on the top. And then you can also use the paintbrush to move it precisely where you want, or to rotate it how you want. And then we'll let that dry and move to stage 2. So I waited about an hour, and now we're going to do step 2, which is to use microsol. So we'll shake it up. We use the same brush, the Nick Pro Liner 1, and we'll dip it into the microsol. And we just paint over the decals. What the microsol does is it softens the decal and helps it conform to the object a little bit better. So any edges that were raised will move down, and that's all you need to do. You usually don't want to do more than 3 coats, I think, because then it starts to really soften and disintegrate the decal. But we'll do that. We'll do 2 or 3 coats on every figure and see how we do. To clean up your brushes after the microsol or microset, I'm just using a little cup of water. And that's working quite well. The eyes are a little bit tricky. So what I do is I cut them out. I cut them close to the decal. See, like that. And then I cut a little triangle for the nose so that it bends around the nose. And I drop them a lot. And you want to be careful you don't go all the way through. So, and do the initial snips. And then I cut the triangle out with an X-Acto knife on my glass cutting board, tempered glass. There it is. So it looks like a pair of goggles at this point. Then I put them on the paper towel, put some water. The micro set is critical because otherwise they're just sliding right off. So I give them a good brushing under the eyes. And by now this is going to be ready. And you just drop them on. And then I use my brush to move them in the right spot. And sometimes I'll use my fingers. And then I try to squish with my nail any extra microset that's bubbling under the eyes. I discovered it's better to do them together as a set rather than cut each eye and eyebrow separately, because I was making them cross-eyed all the time. If you leave them like this, they're the perfect distance, and you just put it on like goggles and it works a lot better. So then we'll let that dry, and this needs at least 3 coats of microsol to soften it and get it into the grooves, because these are very there's a lot of holes and grooves between the eyes and the nose. For the decals for the large data pit computers, I'm using all the same techniques. I cut the decal out, use the microset to place it, and because it's large decal and it's a very flat surface that it's going on, I don't even need to use the microsol, just the microset. When I went to apply the first insignia decal, I was surprised to see it was only in black. The white parts didn't print. Remember, in Photoshop, we made the background transparent, which you can see by these checks, but I could see the actual white parts in the image. So if we zoom in, see, this is transparent, but this is white, which is what I thought we wanted. But the problem is most inkjet printers do not print white. They can't print white. As is, the decals are perfect for my figures with the light gray uniforms, but I need to fix them for the figures with the black uniforms. Most standard inkjet printers have 4 ink cartridges that replicate the CMYK color scheme: cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. Most prints are made on white paper, so we don't normally consider the white color. When a printer prints, it mixes the CMYK colors to give a particular shade on the printed image by assigning a numerical value to each ink cartridge. The CMYK value for white is 0 cyan, 0 magenta, 0 yellow, and 0 black. The problem is 0 on a computer means off or blank. So a pure white color in my image is printed clear or blank. It's just not printed. So what do? In Photoshop, we need to replace the white with another color that's as close to white as possible. So I made a whole new decal sheet. I selected the layer that had the insignia on it. I went up to the menu, Image, Adjustments, Replace Color, and I'll use the Replace Color feature. So you pick the color you want to replace. So it would be FFFFF, which is white. And then I'll replace it with this color. Click on the swatch. And then I replaced it with E3, 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 which is a very light gray. And then I hit OK. And then now, if we zoom in, all the inner white spots are now the light gray. So this will print properly. Well, that didn't work. I tried again with an even darker gray in the white areas, and that didn't work either. So I concluded that I can't use Waterslide Decals on a black surface. To solve this problem, I painted a white circle where the patches would go, and then I applied the decal over the white circle. And in the end, I touched up the over-painted areas very carefully with black. Do I really have to go through all this and make my own decals? Well, you do right now, but very soon Funky tells me that he's going to be providing decal sheets for us. After a final coat of Rust-Oleum matte clear to seal in the decals, here are the finished figures in their new home. If you really like this model, I strongly encourage you to check out Charvies 3D's other designs. So if you click on it, he's got 674 designs. And he breaks them down on his page into figures, vehicles, large dioramas, which is where the Star Destroyer was, medium and small dioramas, parts, bundles, miscellaneous pieces, replacement parts, war games, cosplay, and logos. Thank you for watching my build series video for the 3D printable Star Destroyer bridge diorama from Charvies 3D. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and consider subscribing if you want to see more content like this. If you have any other ideas or tips for how to complete any of the steps that I've shown, please leave us a comment below.